Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, 45 Degree Sailing. My name's Nick and I'm here finally to do the much requested walkthrough of my 40 knots docking video, because of course I put that together and we have had a lot of requests and a lot of questions about can you walk us through that, you know, what were the conditions like, etc, etc, and a bunch of questions of why we use certain lines. So we're going to go through that now. I'm going to watch it and give you that commentary as we go, and hopefully we're going to skip out this part where the video actually jumped and someone said, hey, it would have been good to see how you fixed that problem, because it looked like I cut out a section where actually we just went straight in on the first go. So here we go, walk through 40 knots docking. This was in Marina Karstella earlier this year. Last year actually, late last year. We're now sitting in Windage at Artsy Marina in Windage. Been out for the week. It's been absolutely amazing. Guests are off enjoying and exploring the town before we take off, and we've got a good 20-25 knot border coming up, which it should be a lot of fun to sail home in. So here we go. All right, here we go. So as you can see here at the start of the video, I'm already in reverse as I come into the marina. Now the whole reason for this was what the surface wind here was 25 to 35 knots still on the ground, like at our height in the marina, so you get a lot of windage on that. Now if you want to reduce the amount of effect that's going to have on you, or situations you're going to get into that are hard to get out of, then just reverse right in from outside the marina. You have a plan of where you're going to go, and if that plan supports reversing all the way in from the outside, then do it. Much rather be in control from the start, because if you stop, as soon as you stop and try and turn around, and as we know from other videos, going from forward to reverse, that is the time where you're going to have no control. You might have your bow thruster, but seriously, in this wind, the bow thruster is not fighting anything. It helps. It's not going to fight against 35 knots. It won't fight against 20 knots. So we reversed in right from the outside, everything prepared already. All the crew briefed, all of the lines in place, all of the fenders in place. Everyone knows what's going on, so no one's moving around trying to do anything, and they're all spotting. As you can see here, I'm standing at the helm now. I'm not in my reversing sitting position because I've been reversing for a while, looking around, and I'm standing up so I can see everything and see the wind coming. But notice I never take my hands off the wheel. If you let go of the wheel while in reverse like this, the pressure on the rudders, sorry, my elbow's killing me, I split it open, 3 stitches at the moment. Pressure on the rudder is going to get that wheel to really fly out of your hand, and you can break cables, you can just damage stuff. So here we've just turned the camera around. I apologize about the quality. They were filming on their phone and then sent it to me on WhatsApp. So here I've got the big ball fender. We've got 2 of these on the boat. I love having the big ball fenders. I like more fenders the better. And I'm sending that up to the port bow. The port bow is going to be the most susceptible to swinging and hitting the other boat next to us. So we know it's going to happen. I cannot fight that wind with the bow thruster, and actually very unlikely be able to fight it with the thrust and a control line, because this boat has 2 rudders. So the thrust goes straight between the rudders. We're not going to be able to just turn the helm and direct it into the wind to fight that. So we know it's going that way, so we plan for it and arrest it onto it nicely with a big fender in place. We measured the wind right at surface here, and at this point it dropped down at this moment till about 15 to 20 knots, which was great. Got us able to give a good line, but it was still really blowing, and these gusts that are coming through were hitting 25 and 30. You see the Marina Karstella boat. I called them on the radio. This is a good point. Called them on the radio outside to say 15 minutes ahead, hey, we're coming into the berth, which you do anyway, but can I have 2? I just asked for 2 people on the dock. So that I could throw 2 lines and have the assistance with 2 people on dock instead of 1. They went ahead and put 2 guys in the rib and sent them out to assist us in case. Now the main thing that boat's going to do for you is act as a fender with a motor. So when the bow inevitably swings around, if you're not in the right position, they can just nudge the boat and hold it in place or push you off any trouble you're in. Though I did think they were awfully close to this bow line on this yacht just here, and I was thinking, if you catch that, I'm not dealing with your drama. Now, this position I'm in here, this is how I teach reversing into the dock, this sideways position in this case. On this yacht, Mila Felice here, it's a standing podium because the control's up here, which I also like, but it's a different thing. Here, and a lot of the boats at this size, the gear lever is down between your legs there, and you're going to need to be able to have access to it. But you also need to have your hand on the helm, not taking it off at all. And on top of that, I like to be able to see what's coming up behind me and what's happening with the bow. It's very hard to tell how fast or if the bow is turning at all from looking at the stern. It's so blunt, and you could be heading into the wind but actually crawling like this because you can't really tell. So using the bow as a visual point is really, really helpful. So I have my hand in one place and I don't actually move it much out of that place. There I needed a little bit more, so I put two hands on, but really I'm only shifting my hand a little bit. I've just taken my hand down to the throttle and we've gone into neutral. No, actually, I added more speed. I added more speed there because I wanted this turn. There's a good gust coming across the water. So we can't really see me at this point, but I've just re-instructed the crew to, hey, fenders down and in position, just going over what's happening step by step. Okay, so I've alerted our man on the port quarter. He's going to be the first line to throw. And we'll talk about this in a little bit because someone said, what might be their experience or whatever, they said, no, actually, it should have been the windward line that got thrown first. I disagree with that in this situation. It doesn't mean it's wrong. You can throw the windward line first. No problem there, especially if you've got a single ruddered yacht. So this is the section where we go straight in. Now I was a bit naughty letting the helm slip through my hand there, but that's what I do. I'd encourage you, there we go. So that's the fast turn. At that point, we're really wanting to whip the stern around, and I need speed to do this. This is not a maneuver you can do really slow because the windage on the boat is just, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. So you need a certain amount of speed to hold your tracking through the water. So at that point, I finished the turn because we needed to be wide from the port bow mooring lines. I really finished the turn and come in there. I'll have to see, I think I do one little push on the bow thruster just to give it a bit of extra to windward. But by making that turn and your bow going into the wind, you're giving the inertia and the momentum of the boat into the wind so that it's going to come back. Now, if you had come into the berth the other direction and your inertia is with the wind, it just keeps going and it's very hard for you to get straight. So you see now two hands on the wheel because it's really quite strong at that point. And now that was that little bit of bow thruster and now the forward thrust on. Now, instinctively at that moment, I'm turning the wheel to starboard because usually with a single rudder boat, that would then kick my stern to starboard, push my bow, kick my stern to port, push my bow to starboard and help keep me straight, all right? Now, our man here has thrown the stern line, the port quarter line. This was one of the questions that came up, and why did I throw the leeward line over the starboard, over the windward line? In this case, what I want is that line to get on quick so that I can pull against it and rest against the boat on port. I'm going to end up on port anyway. All right, I'm going to end up on port. I can't fight against this. It'd be lovely if I could get the windward line on and pull the boat to windward, but it's just not going to happen. So we rest against the port side and we control it by pinning that leeward side as close as we can there so that the boat doesn't twist as much. If I had to have my windward line on, I'd need much more power and probably wouldn't manage to hold that control line to keep my bow out. I can only really do it in this situation with the leeward line, so that's why that was my first line. Also, I'm on the helm and I'm on starboard, so it makes sense that if I'm still controlling the speed so that we stop, which is what I did right before I threw this line, that line is happening and that's the one. But even had I been on my own in this situation, no, had I been on my own, I still would have thrown the leeward line. I would have had that closer to my person, picked it up and tossed it to him and asked him to secure it, just in case the wind picked me up and I didn't have time to get and retrieve it back before it things. So on my own, I would have been happy doing this my own, but I would have thrown that leeward line to him. That would have been my control line and I would have asked him to tie it, then throw on the starboard line, the windward line. So at this point the boat stalled, and then right at that point it was starting to twist. Now he's getting control line on, so I just start going forward because I'm looking at the line of the boat and how it's twisting. So I want to move forward a little bit so that my fenders on the port quarter are going to line up nicely with that boat. I'd used a little bit of bow thruster, I think, but not much. There's just not much point at this stage. In this wind, there is a point to do it. And I'm getting that control. As soon as I see he's got that turn on, I want to take the pressure onto it. Now, if you notice right at this moment, you know, it was a little bit flustering and everything. What I teach is that this first turn is a full circle. Now, in this case, the person on this line did a round and did an X straight away, and that could have just been in the moment or however it goes, but I would say no, I want a full turn around that. You'll be able to hold it if you hold tension on it, and it's much easier to let slip if I want a bit of line to come out with. So once he's got that on, I'm now putting throttle into forward a little. Our fenders are in place, and we're now down onto that boat on the port side, and it's sitting nicely. Now, because we had extra crew on board, we've already got the starboard lazy line attached to the mooring line up and heading towards the bow. It was another reason why I didn't throttle on earlier to this stern line, because I wanted to make sure that that lazy line was nowhere near my prop, because there was a bit of wash and breeze, everything pushing it that way. So he's getting that secured now, and I'm not actually concerned about that line as much as getting that stern port stern line, the control line on, so that I can maintain my power against it. I've then retrieved back my aft starboard line as well, so that I can get those two in position. Then we just power out a little bit. I'm going to pull against those stern lines, get the boat out further so that they can pull the slack up. There's no point in trying to pull a 16 to 25 ton boat when it's attached to stern lines and say, hey, get more pressure on that bow line. It's not that, it's just, you're fighting physics. But whereas if you bring the boat further towards where the mooring lines are anchored, they can pull in the slack, and then we can reverse against them. So we head out that way, we get it secured at the front, and then we reverse back, tightening the stern lines as we go. If we decide we're still too close, then we go out again, ease the stern lines out, carry on out, pull up more slack out of that line, but don't break your back or send 5 people to the bow to try and pull this line harder. There will be a time for that, maybe, but generally, no. This should be able to be done without that sort of stress, and you will hurt your back up there if you're getting old and you've had back injuries. So get those lines secure at the bow, and then back up onto them. Once you've got that control line on, and especially once you've got your first starboard bow line on, you don't need to panic anymore. You don't need to rush. Hopefully you weren't panicking anyway, but that is your point to just slow down, take stock, use neutral, all right, and just go, right, is everyone good? Let's go through this slowly. There is no rush at this point. You are in control for the most part. You are connected. You can't go too far back, or you've got your fenders there protecting it. You've got your throttle as well if you need to push forward. But that is that one, okay? So that was the walkthrough. I'm gonna now look at my phone and address some of the questions that I may have missed throughout that. All right, question and answers time. So look, and also a big thank you to everyone who supported us on this video. I think at the time I'm looking at it, let me have a look, it's had something like 25,000 views, which is really cool. Really cool. So thank you so much for the support. Yeah, it's been cool to get this one out. I don't often get the opportunity to be able to film and do this all at the same time, because of course I still got to drive the boat. So thank you also to those that filmed it on that day with us. You guys are a fun crew, and you were game. So, perfect job, good planning, good crew, and everything went right. If only it was like this all the time. Yeah, and that was George saying that, and yes, we had good planning. Was it perfect? It's never going to be perfect, but thank you. And it's not always going to go like that. Sometimes you're going to plan everything, you're going to do all you can, you're going to follow all the right procedures, and it just goes wrong. So, as long as you're in the best position to manage it, that's the one. Made it look real easy. Yeah, it never is. Got to guess that, you know, this is an encouraging video, so that's great. Important points was that with sufficient boat speed, tracking backwards in an extreme crosswind works surprisingly well. It does and it doesn't. Remember, this was on the beam, but it was also just after the beam on the quarter. So that means our first reversing line was very much into the wind. And so that's why I wanted that turn to swing the bow into the wind, because once you're in that crosswind, and especially if you have to slow down and stop, it's going to take you. So while you're tracking, it's doable, but in a direct crosswind, you're going to have to like stem the wind. You'll be on a slight angle. Planned, prudent, calm, and without fear. without fear. Let me be very clear. Every time I come in any sort of wind, my heart's a bit faster. I'm always wary of what the wind can do and what the weather can do. The day you think that you've just got this and it's easy, that's the day you're going to make the mistakes. So I've always got a small fear in there, or maybe it's a respect, I'm not sure, but just be very careful not to get overconfident. So Dilip Ghosh, he said, what speed do you need to go to have control in the final turn? All right, because he was going to do a 46 Bavaria Cruiser from Belgrade in a few weeks. How did that go? I really want to know how your week went. What I responded there was about 2 to 3 knots in that wind is what I want to be going in the initial parts of that turn, but without power on. Ideally, I'm in neutral and I've got the momentum. So 2. If I can keep it down to 1.5, 2, that's ideal. But sometimes I need to be doing 2, 2.5, upwards of 3 if I've got a real crosswind, like really pushing on it like this. So I think coming into the berth, I was probably doing 2.5. All very encouraging comments. Thank you very much. Great video. Emphasis on a good plan. Castella guys are always super helpful. You know, and sending out that rib is great. So yeah, if you're not going to get help necessarily if you don't ask. So ask for help. Say to them, hey, we're coming in, we would like some assistance, and they'll make it a whole lot easier. Aaron, I hope I never have to dog in that weather again. You will, we will. Okay, practical question. The 2 stern lines are especially, the upwind one should be secured without delay. I'm assuming using a clean line, non-fixed loops, is recommended. Okay, this is something that is all very specific to the marina or whatever you're going into. So if you've got like right here, I've got cleats on the dock at the Artsy Marina, so you could send a fixed loop to the shore, a fixed bowline loop, and go around the cleat and get it attached. You can even already have a turn around the cleat on your boat, which is great. That is going to be faster and less trouble. Okay, whereas coming into Marina Castella, they have rings on the dock, so that makes it very different. You throw a fixed loop to that, it's actually more likely to get caught as the guy's trying to put it through the ring than to be helpful. So you need to survey what your dock looks like or what's going on. They did ask, is there any way for us to know what it's like? They don't really have information about that. You can look at the marina's pictures online and see how they're secured, but it's a bit tough to know that. It's more of an experience thing. You could ask them on the radio though. You could always ask them on the radio. But I would just generally plan to be throwing a clean line, and they can tie a quick bite and a turn into that so to hold you, or they're going to send it back. And then there was also this this question about hitches. So I know, especially like RYA, things like that, they're going to teach you that you put one end of your line onto your cleat with a cleat hitch, 0800, and then it goes back, goes out and comes back, and then you can do another cleat hitch over the top. Now, when you've got a big cleat and a normal size rope, that's cool. It's going to work. Even on this Hunter 548, and I'll take a shot of these cleats so you can see, if I did cleat hitch at the start, back into the dock and another cleat, I just run out of space on my cleats. So I have a bowline tied and around the cleat, and that's not technically how you should do it. We do this every day though, and it's generally good. As long as you've got a clean line in the other end when you're releasing, or however it's going to come back onto the boat, you can still bail out with that. Grant Cormack, he said, I have a twin rudder boat with no prop wash, so I can make it even harder, and that was what we had in this case. The Bavaria 46 is a twin rudder boat, so you can't push water straight over the rudder in order to give you that steerage. Makes it very tough springing off as well. So, John Douglas, it's a shame you had that cut at 6:07 when your line wasn't quite right. It would have been useful to see how you sorted it out. So I hope that fixes that. The line was right, thankfully. It's not always, but the line was right, so now you can see it goes straight in. But that's a really good point though, because sometimes the line won't be right. I've been in situations where the line wasn't right and I've had to either bail out or fix it. So there's basically two options. Either you can turn your rudder quickly, stop the boat a little bit, and then engage reverse again and get in to fix your line, or you just have to bail out. Now, if you're not sure if you're going to be able to change that, especially when there's a big crosswind, I would just go, okay, this isn't working, forward, get back down the pier, get clear of the leeward lines, and then do the approach again. Trying to fix it halfway into the berth means you're going to end up laying onto the bow of the boat. You could end up catching your keel or your rudder or any sorts of things on the mooring lines of the boats next to you. Very nicely executed. With respect to the final position of the boat, where was the wind coming from? From the pier, question mark. So Daniel, that one, it was coming about 90 to 120 degrees. It was off our starboard quarter, starboard beam once we were there. Tian said that it might have been 40 plus at the masthead, but I think you're getting closer to 20 at the freeboard. We did actually measure this after I docked, and we had 25 to 36 at the freeboard, and then the 43 to 47 at the masthead. So, you know, I still consider that docking of 40 plus knots, because that's what it was. But it's so true, is maybe that's one reason you can be a little bit calmer about it, is that when you're coming in, you're not going to be dealing with the same amount of windage that you feel outside of the marina. You will have some shelter from the boats, for sure. Because we can video, I've watched all your videos, particularly stern docking. Thank you very much, guys. Very well done. Good job. Sasha asked also, was the wind at sea level at the marina a bit less? So yeah, that's what it, and it's not going to look like 30 knots. What does 30 knots look like in complete no fetch water? It's just ruffled water going across, and that doesn't even really pick too much up because it's in between. But it's, yeah, definitely you have some shelter in between there. Someone asked about throwing the windward line, and Yosef said, right question, it would have been better to throw the windward line first. Well, I explained that in the video, and in this case I don't agree, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. Everyone's got their way of doing it, and you can work it however you need to at the time. The important thing is to get a line on. Bill Blevins asked, the stern line is a little foreign here in the US. Do your bow lines and springs tie to the boat next to you? Don't see any pilings. No, so these ones are outright moorings in the front of the boat, down in the seabed between the two piers. There's a massive chain running through and more concrete blocks, and they attach to that, and then up to the boat. That's why they're on a steep angle going down. In this case, I actually also ran a bow line from my yacht to the yacht to windward, just to pull it off, because we'd you know, we were still away over there, we were nudging against it. Ideally we wouldn't have as much movement, and we were pretty good, but I just pushed that one up there because we were going to get this northeast wind all night. So I just ran a bow line across, and often in the marinas they'll do that. Sam also asked, why not throw a bowline to the dock? Because it took 15 seconds to get the line back. Exactly the same reason. Because of this, we had a ring. You can't throw a bowline to the dock. A lot of people telling me this stressed them out watching this. So Dovidas also said, as you're getting between the boats, it looks like I'm going to hit one, then the video cuts. I'll go over this one again, because that's exactly right. It does, especially from the camera angle, it feels like we're going to hit that boat. And we come within about a foot or 2 feet with it with our stern, because our stern is going to push around. So at that moment, it's about having the speed to make that turn, getting your rudder full lock around just for that moment to pull the boat straight, and then definitely, if you've got it, use the bow thruster to just kick it away. Sometimes if you feel like you're not making that turn, that's a good time to hit the bow thruster. As you bow thrust to, in this case, starboard or to windward, then the stern's going to kick easily the other way, because the wind's holding you from making that turn so fast. So I think that's all of it. I do apologize if I missed your question, if it's in there, but feel free to put it on this video as well, and let me know what you think, and if there's any further questions, I'll answer those. As I said, huge thanks to everyone who's watching the video and commenting. It's been really cool having the community talk about this and just ask the questions. We will keep working on producing as many of these as we can, so that everyone can be as well prepared as possible. So remember, like and comment, and if you want to see more of this stuff, subscribe to the channel. We are stoked to have hit 7,000 subscribers last week. We're on track to hit 8,000, I think, early next week. So thank you very much. See you all guys in the next video.